Today we have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is part 3 of a 4-part series there that we look at consensus ADPs and we match it up with the positions here. And now we are going to talk about running backs after briefly touching on quarterbacks and tight ends. So before we go any further, make sure to head over to fantasypoints.com, enter promo code VIPERS22, and get 10% off that Fantasy Points subscription today. And they have content coming at you all week, all month. Listen, Graham Barfield, those best ball tiers that just dropped for all the positions here. The franchise focus series that begins on June 24th. 32 days, 32 articles, 32 podcasts, and that content you're going to get key off-season moves. Scott Barrett's strength of schedules, Graham Barfield's pace and tendencies. You get data points in there, projected fantasy contributors courtesy of Joe Dolan and Jake Tribby. Dynasty buy lows courtesy of Wes Huber. John Hansen's final points and interviews with team beat writers. You get that all over at fantasypoints.com. And hey, make sure to turn those subscriptions on, those notifications up, whatever it takes right here on the Vipers Network, because we are coming at you with all kinds of content here this week, next week. You've got this. We talk about quarterbacks. We talk about tight ends, running backs today, wide receivers Friday. We got Emery Hunt coming on the show, and we've got Pete Overzet coming on as well here next week. So lots of content to consume. And now we are going to our running back guru here to talk about the running back position as it pertains to the current ADP. Now, when we look at this current running back stable here, it's Jonathan Taylor at number 1. No question about it. ADP, don't matter. There's no one that's going to take it a running back before Jonathan Taylor. But then it gets interesting. You got Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara. You got Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, Cam Akers, James Conner, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, Ezekiel Elliott at 19, David Montgomery at 20, Antonio Gibson 21, Dobbins 22, Jacobs 23, and I can keep going on and on and on. Now, Tera, I'm going to go to you before I go to our guru here. And which running back, in your opinion, is way too high according to their current ADP?
It's Najee. Unfortunately, it's not a knock on Najee. I just think that what we saw last year is it's a ceiling for him. And when you look at the situation that the team is in this year, when we've rained on Pittsburgh's parade repeatedly in multiple episodes. So I don't know if we need to go into that, but unfortunately, I don't think the situation is getting any better for them. They didn't make any major upgrades at the running back position, and this isn't, this supposed reduced role, which I don't think is going to take away a lot from him. It's just kind of keep him more fresh. I think he's still going to have the volume, but I don't think that the catches are going to be there at the rate that they were last year. He's going to come down a little bit. I don't think that he's going to finish where he did last year.
You know what? I have a hard time agreeing or disagreeing with that, because you look at those numbers. It was very I think he had the most receptions of any running back in the league. We also know that Ben Roethlisberger basically turned into a noodle arm at one point. So, I mean, the numbers kind of speak for themselves there.
You replace him with another noodle arm, so he's going to have the same type.
Yeah, but it's a noodle arm. It's got a little bit more to it. And don't be, if you're talking about Mitch Trubisky here, we may have to go fight behind the scenes here, because Mitch Trubisky, a little respect on the truth there in Pittsburgh. Now, Major, who's that running back that, hey, you ain't buying at that ADP?
I'm gonna go with Eckler. We got Eck up here at 3. Henry is back. He's gonna move into that top 3, so that's already kicking him out. Mixon to me is so underrated. He's gonna be in that race. So and don't forget CJ Spiller's on that team now, and I think the Chargers have been looking for a backup running back to help with some of that workload, because Eckler does really well and then he gets hurt and then he's like playing at 50%, 60% the rest of the season. And I'm really high on CJ Spiller. I know a lot of people was down on him during the draft because he didn't really participate in anything. But if you watch his film, the guy is a baller. So, and he's a big body, so he's going to take some of those goal line carries away as well. So I'm looking at Eckler's numbers. They're probably going to decline a little bit because I think they're trying to take some of the heat off of him.
I've got a massive argument against that.
But it's going to be wrong, so go ahead and try.
It's not. It's like a whole bunch of statistics that I plan to make into a video.
Hate stats. Oh my gosh, I hate stats.
His usage is super sustainable. It was not. He was 14th in attempts. He was 12th in rush yards, 4-point yards. But these are very repeatable and very sustainable numbers. It's not like with Najee where we saw things that were out of the ordinary, very high, unrealistic that he could get back there. These are super realistic things that he can get back to. So
I cannot wait to play this back.
Follow me on Twitter, guys, because I'm going to make a video at some point with these and dive more into it. So
yeah, but numbers are for like nerds. And we're talking about talent. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the guys you mentioned there that you're taking above Austin Eckler, he's facing like 10 men in the box with 5 screws in his foot, and that's Derrick Henry. Do you really think Derrick Henry? You've lost AJ Brown. You've lost a target on the outside. I mean, this I don't see. He's got 5 screws in his foot. There's going to be some regression to Derrick Henry. At least I know Austin Eckler's still all together right now.
Is he?
Now, for me, ADP. We look at this ADP. Javonte Williams is RB9.
That's your guy.
I was high on Javonte heading into the season. Yeah. I really wanted to buy into him. And in fact, in a lot of my dynasty leagues, if you want to invest in him, by all means, go for it. Do it. I got no problem with that. But if we're looking at redraft, we're looking at this year, Russell Wilson, they're going to let him throw the ball a little bit. You got Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy. Melvin Gordon is still there. Now, we know Javonte Williams can perform with Melvin Gordon. Heck, we know Javonte Williams can perform with other running backs in the backfield. In North Carolina, Michael Carter was that guy. So we know Javonte Williams can give you production, but at RB9, I just can't get behind that right now. For me, that's a little too much. Do I think he could crack RB14, somewhere in that ballpark? Absolutely, but RB9, a little too rich for me. Now, Tara, when we go back to, we talked about which ones were a little bit too high, too much, to cost us too much, so to speak. What's a running back right now that may be the most underappreciated, undervalued heading into draft season?
It's clearly Nick Chubb for me. I mean, we can take a wild guess and say there's probably going to be at a minimum an 8-game suspension for Deshaun Watson. They're going to have to lean on their run game. That is Nick Chubb. The opportunity is going to be there, especially if we've got Jacoby Brissett leading the way at quarterback, unfortunately. So I think that the value is really going to be there. I think he's a solid RB1.
Major, over to you. Because I like this one. Because this guy you're about to mention here, he pretty much gets disrespected year in, year out type things as far as the fantasy community is going. I got him as my RB3 this season. Who are you talking about?
I'm going with Joe Mixon. That's one of my favorite running backs in the league. He's the most talented running back in the league. He has the size, the speed, he can catch, he even threw a touchdown. Like, the guy is an all-around player. The engine sometimes is not always there, but I think having that young nucleus of receivers around him, kind of energizing him, stretching the field, the NFL is going to have to find a way to stop Chase. Like, there's no way you can let him do what he did last year. And you got Higgins out there, and you have the new tight end they have out there. Like, they have a squad, so you cannot load the box on Joe Mixon. So he's going to be able to run and do whatever he wants to do all over the field. I'm all in on Joe Mixon. Who you got, Matt?
I think the biggest thing with Joe Mixon is that offensive line upgrades. I mean, they added 3 starting guys there: center, tackle, guard. I mean, that one side is pretty much redone. I like what the Bengals did there. This team's going to be dangerous. If Joe Burrow got sacked 51 times and did what he did last year with no offensive line, imagine what him and Joe Mixon are capable of with an offensive line. Now, for me, hey, it looks like David Montgomery's getting a little bit of respect. He's coming in as RB20. RB20. This guy right now that could also push for RB1 type status. He's a guy that could flirt between that 12 and 14 range when it's all said and done. We know the running back position is a war of attrition right now, especially when it comes to injuries. That's why Josh Jacobs always ends up somewhere in that RB12 range, no matter how much disrespect we put on his name year in and year out. David Montgomery's in that same area. We don't appreciate him as much as we should. And that is an absolute shame right now. So for me, David Montgomery is one of the most undervalued running backs in today's game. Now, when we talk about players that are undervalued, we also have to talk about players we are avoiding, whether it's injury risk, whether it's production, whether it's changes to that team. Tera, who is that running back that you're avoiding this season?
Side note, Matt, this is just such a great series for us. I completely agree with you with David Montgomery. But the running back that hurts Major's heart.
You guys don't have sound effects and stuff. I'm going to start muting you guys.
I'm gonna get a sound effects machine so we can just do it right back. The player that I'm avoiding, and it's no knock to Christian McCaffrey. I mean, obviously, he is someone who he plays, even 15, 14 games. I mean, he's the clear overall RB1. I'm just not willing to take that risk. It's not a knock to the talent. We know exactly who he is. I just don't want to take him as my RB1 and end up in the exact same situation as last year and the previous year before that. So let it be someone else, Hedek.
Well, we know when he does play, I think last year he played like 4 games. I think he was like RB 56 or something, only 4 games of play, right? I mean, when Christian McCaffrey's in your lineup, if you have him, he is RB1, RB2 at the least, right? That's kind of where he is. Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey right now. But do you want to, and Tera clearly does not, want to invest a top 3 pick on a player whose last 2 seasons he has not been able to perform or hasn't been able to get on the field? Your availability is your best ability, right? We've talked about this on the show many times. If you can't get in my lineup, I can't use you. I can't have you play for me. So I have to avoid you. Now, who are you avoiding there, Major? Probably along the same lines?
Yeah, along the same lines. And I hate this one because I'm a big fan of Saquon Barkley. But it's just I think that injury is a little worse than what they thought it was. I mean, nowadays you'll have a knee injury and you're back like in 2 weeks. But this injury seemed like it's been 2 years now, it feels like, since we've seen him actually perform full time on the field at a high level. So, I mean, this is the make or break year for him. So if he can get it together, maybe he can change my mind. But and there's some talent out there now. They're not going to be stacking the box on him anymore. And hopefully, Danny Dimes can finally live up to his nickname. But I'm going with Saquon on this one, and it kind of hurts to say that. And I know this one's going to hurt you as well, Matt. Who you got on the board?
Yeah, just to go back to Barkley here, I like his value right now. I think he's going about the 3rd round, pushing towards the 2nd. I can get behind that to put a little bit of that risk into it, as opposed to Christian McCaffrey. I think the value is a little bit better. For me, it's Josh Jacobs. I know he's disrespected and this and that, and when this dust settles, he's probably going to end up back there. But I look at what they've done. The Raiders did not pick up his 5th-year option. They in fact drafted Zamir White out of Georgia, another bulldozing type back to kind of go in there, which could be the replacement for Josh Jacobs. Now, could they run him right onto the ground this season? It's a possibility. But now you've got Renfro, you've got Waller, you've got Devontae Adams there. They are gearing up towards more of a passing. Kenyon Drake is back there as well. He missed last year. So all those catches that Josh Jacobs was getting, Kenyon Drake is going to factor into that. Brandon Bolden's coming over from New England. His role was as a pass catcher last year. So now you've got Drake, you've got Bolden, both guys who can catch the ball out of the backfield. I don't know how this backfield is going to work out for the Raiders, and I'm kind of hesitant. Now, if I can get Jacobs in the 5th, 6th round, by all means, that's a smash there in draft time. I'm going to still go. If I can get him as my RB3, I'm going to feel really good about that. But right now, I look at things, I'm like, I can't do it right now. I just can't. He's my guy who I'm avoiding. Now, Tera, tell me someone that I should probably keep my eye on here. Who's a sleeper who will turn in a top 12 RB season, currently outside that top 24? Let's go deep.
Guys, I'm assuming everybody loves PPR. We're talking PPR. So we're looking for those high pass catching upside running backs as opposed to the ground guys. And someone who I think realistically has the chance to be able to crack that top 12 is Travis Etienne based off that pass catching ability. I think we're going to see him heavily support that wide receiver core that is a little bit lacking behind Christian Kirk as the number one receiver. And I think the upside is there. We do have James Robinson, who we're not 100% sure in terms of whether or not he's going to be ready. It's sounding like he is trending towards potentially being available in camp. But again, when they come back from these types of injuries, you're not going to immediately see them having the same type of impact that they did pre-injury. So I think ETN just has a ton of upside to potentially be able to finish in the top 12.
I like that you brought in James Robinson here. We're going to talk about dynamic duos here shortly, but I know the thought of Robinson and ETN gives managers a little bit of the heebie-jeebies because if Robinson's performing, that's going to cut into ETN, et cetera, et cetera. But Brad Martz, he's got an article coming out here on dynastyvipers.com talking about these top duos, which we'll get into a little bit later there. Now, Major, don't shake your head. She's not lying here. Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Mervyn Jones, Alan Jones. I mean, all the Joneses, they can make a difference.
Put some respect on Zay Jones. That dude is a baller. And they got LaVisca Chenault. They got everything that happened last year is because of the coach. I'm not putting out any of those young men. That coach ruined that team. They're going to come out and you're going to see it's going to be like the Bengals again. It's going to be like that team out of nowhere that's like make it to the playoffs or something. But hey, let's not get too crazy yet. I'm still, but I'm going to go with mine. I'm going to go with a running back who is like one injury away from being the man in Dallas, and that's Tony Pollard. I think they want him to be the man. They just can't move off of a Zeke because of that contract. But I mean, I think everyone loves him right now. He's like the third down back, but when he's in the game, you see the offense moves a little bit better, a little more explosive. It opens up another dimension to the offense, and losing Cooper, they're going to have to rely on other people to pick up that slack. And I think that Pollard is going to be one of those main attractions to do that. So I'm going with Tony Pollard. Especially if Zeke gets hurt, Tony Pollard could be a top 5 back.
Well, there's a lot of backs that could have a lot higher potential if the running back in front of them goes down. We know, and Pollard, I'm surprised that you went with him because he's the RB2 in Dallas, not the RB3. So for me, I'm going to say the guy right now the top 24 that's going to give us top 12 numbers is A.J. Dillon. He is not a backup running back. He's not. He's number 25 in everything right now. He's RB25. That's too low.
Quads. You like those quads. That's all.
Oh, man. I mean, we got Quadzilla there. We got the Quad Daddy, whatever you want to call it down there, man. A.J. Dillon is going to give you top 12 production. There's no question about it. And Aaron Jones is going to give you this right around that same. I think you can have the RB12 and RB14 both coming out of the Packers. That's how good I think they'll be, especially because I don't know who's going to catch passes. I know Aaron Jones is going to catch passes from Aaron Rodgers, but I know A.J. Dillon is going to run the rock. And he's going to do it really well. So give him that potential to be a top 12 running back coming out of the top 24 kind of positioning there. Now, Tera, do you believe in handcuffing running backs? And if so, what is the top RB handcuff heading into 2022?
I can take it or leave it. I'm not entirely passionate about handcuffing running backs. I typically don't. I would if I maybe had Madison and I wanted to draft Dalvin Cook and then get Madison, that makes sense as a handcuff. But in my opinion, when you're drafting, you're just trying to draft these guys that are high upside opportunity handcuffs, and it doesn't matter if you have the RB1 on that team. You're just looking for that potential upside. So I consider the top handcuff in a traditional sense to be Alexander Madison. If we're talking about someone who is a non-traditional handcuff, because as you talked about A.J. Dillon, he technically has standalone value. So I don't consider him like the handcuff type of handcuff. But if he counts, then it would be Dillon. That was a lot to say.
All right, now, Major, I know you have thoughts on RB handcuffs. So I'm going to send the mic your way.
Yeah, I just absolutely hate the word handcuff. Like, Can we get away from that? Can we call it pairing? I'm not trying to handcuff the homies or anything because I just see crazy things every time we say handcuff. We can use pairing. I want to pair this running back with that running back. Let's try that language. I just hate handcuff, talking about young black men and handcuffing them. I know it may be a reach. I know some of you guys don't want to have politics and other stuff in sports, but hey, I'm a young black man and I hear this stuff and it makes me feel weird. So hey, I'm just gonna say that, and I'm not gonna handcuff anybody. You know, I'm just gonna pair maybe Ramondre Stevenson and Harris. Let's do that.
Well, for me, the one running back that I'm pairing right now is Rashad Penny's kind of backup kind of guy right now is Kenneth Walker. And yes, Penny is the starting running back in Seattle. I will stay there. I will get right here on this mountain. You do not do what Penny does and not demand some touches next season, right? Penny is going to get that until he doesn't, until he gets hurt or whatever that looks like. But now I'm not going to deny Kenneth Walker and his abilities, but what Penny does, he does it well. And you know what? We know one thing about Pete Carroll. Once he has a running back that he can trust, he is going to go with that. Look what Chris Carson got all those years. You could have argued that Rashad Penny was more talented than Chris Carson, but Chris Carson was Carroll's guy. I think it's going to take a little bit before Kenneth Walker becomes Carroll's guy, and therefore that's where you get Penny a little bit more. That's kind of that old college attitude, going with what you got kind of thing. I think that's Carroll kind of preaches all the time. So for me, yeah, I'll pair up running backs from time to time. And in this situation, it's going to be Kenneth Walker and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, we need a dark horse back out of you here, Tara. Who's that dark horse to finish RB1 overall? Let's go. Let's see what you got. Let's be bold.
All right. I wanted to make sure that it was overall. This is bold. I'm not going to say something that's like extremely unrealistic. Come on now. I think that somebody who has the opportunity and the capabilities and the workload to be able to be the overall RB1 is Deandre Swift. We've seen it. We know that he will get work on the ground. He'll get just enough. He's got that perfect Austin Eckler type of statistics to where you've got enough work on the ground that's going to push you over the edge when you combine it with the pass catching upside out of the backfield, the yardage, the touchdown. If he can just finish a full season, it is right there within his cusp. I can see it. I can see it.
Are you concerned at all about my man, Jamal Williams, factoring into this? Because last year, their touches and their run yardage was almost dead even.
I love Jamal Williams. Not concerned with it. I'm not going to knock him, but it's Swift who they want to be the RB1 in that offense. That whole 1A, 1B was kind of an Anthony Lynn kind of thing, so I don't think we're going to see that again.
All right, now, Major, when I put this question in, I already knew your answer before I even finished putting like the RB1 in there. As soon as I said dark horse, I knew the answer right away. So Major, let us know who that is.
I'm going with Cam Akers. Like when he's in the game, he carries the ball like every play. They don't really have a backup for him. They don't really like when he's in the game, he's in the game. They don't like give him any rest. They run him into the ground. And it looks like he's back from that Achilles. Last year, he performed pretty well in the playoffs and the championship game and all that good stuff. So I'm gonna go with Cam on this one. I think he's going to have a pretty good season, especially with everyone so focused on the receivers they have going on and all that good stuff. I think he's going to get lost in the sauce a little bit.
Well, Akers does have some PPR upside there. We know he can catch the ball. We've seen him go one-on-one with linebackers, win those battles pretty easily. But, I mean, that passing offense, Cooper Kupp, you got Allen Robinson there. You've got Van Jefferson. Let's not forget about him. Who knows? November, December rolls around. We could see Odell Beckham Jr. coming back to the
He's going to be back. He's going to be back.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to be back. Where is he going to be? I think he could end up as a Christmas present for the Rams here this year, because I think that's kind of you take 9 months and then that puts him January, puts him about October, and then add probably 6 weeks of recovery. I mean, that puts him right around Christmas time for a return. And that'd be a nice little Christmas present for the defending champions. Now, for me, you mentioned him as a guy that you're avoiding, and I mentioned him as a value right now in the third round pushing forward. It's Saquon Barkley. I love this strength of schedule. I know we don't get caught up in the strength of schedule. Don't buy it in too much, but it factors in to a degree. I mean, Saquon Barkley and this Giants offense is a lot better than what we're giving it credit for. We know there's some good pieces on this offensive line, and we know there's a pretty good head coach coming over from the Buffalo Bills to the New York Giants in Brian Daboll. So we know this offense is going to look a little bit different, and I really like Saquon Barkley's opportunities here to go from what I say is RB12 right now to the overall RB1. Now, we need to know these combinations here. What is the best backfield combination in the National Football League, Tera?
I mean, it's Aaron Jones and AJ
Homer.
Dillon. Come on now. It's not a homer opinion. I think that a lot of people would agree with me on that. I think we're going to see, and I think Matt too, because you spoke very highly there of AJ Dillon, and I think we're going to see a lot of production out of the both of them. The thing you have to remember about the Packers backfield is that it's not split up in the way that the Patriots are. They don't run it as the weird committee where everybody has one specific role. Both Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon have a lot of value both on the ground and through the air. A little bit extra through the air for Aaron Jones that pushes him up into that RB1 territory. But with that, you've got one guy that is going to be an RB1. You've got one guy who I think is clearly going to be in the RB2 range. It's the best combination in the NFL, in my opinion.
And before I move on to Major here, yeah, Tera, I'm with you here. When I talk about an RB12 and RB14 as a combination, it's going to be the best combination in the National Football League, and that is Aaron Jones, that's AJ Dillon. I'm with you on this because I don't think there's a better combination. And I'm going to turn it over to Major so I can make fun of his picks here in a second. So, Major, floor is yours.
Wait, now you got me double thinking this here. But I'm going to go with Chubb and Hunt. I don't know, is something weird with that, but, because Chubb is one of the best backs in the league. Hunt is one of the best backs in the league. They're both on the same team. So that's an easy call. But my heart is with Dre Stevenson and Harris. That's the best backfield. That's the best 1-2 punch. Like Ramondre is going to be the man out there. He's going to have the best season. He's going to be the breakout candidate of the year. That's my guy right there, Ramondre Stevenson. Remember who said it first?
He was also his breakout candidate last year. So if you keep
he broke out last year.
Major Thomas. Let's keep
Major Thomas. Now, Major, this New England Patriots backfield, Tera touched on a little bit here. They've got more running backs there now than ever before. James White's coming back from his injury last year. Is he going to be is he what he used to be? No, he's not. But they've got Pierre Strong Jr. there out of South Dakota. He is a jackrabbit, both figuratively and literally, coming out of South Dakota. So he's a guy I really like to take a lot of those touches as way too. And I don't think Harris and I don't think Stevenson can have standalone value away from each other. I mean, or together. I don't think they can both be productive together. You've seen it. Stevenson had his big games when Harris was unavailable, right? It was that. And when Harris was playing, Stevenson wasn't getting the ball. It was that simple, especially on the goal line where you're expecting these big time numbers for Stevenson. Harris got 15 touchdowns last year. Stevenson needs some of those, right? We got to give some of those to Stevenson, or else Stevenson is going to be a number two. He doesn't want to do that. You like it.
You like it.
Now let's talk about Ramondre Stevenson. No, we're not going to talk about anymore about Ramondre Stevenson.
No, we're going to yours now. Who you got? Who's your
best? We were talking about that. I kind of tied it in there with Tera, Dillon, and Jones. Now, Tera, who's that player that you were drafting no matter what?
It's Aaron Jones. Won't dive into it more, but the value is just insane, guys. I mean, at this point, you're getting him easily in the second round. Sometimes he's slipping into the third round, depending on what kind of draft you're in, the players that you're playing with, and their perception. You're able to sit there and go ahead and go with a Cooper Kupp, a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase, and then come around and get your RB1 as Aaron Jones. Yeah, it's such a good strategy. Do it.
Major.
I'm going to go with Cam Akers again here, and I think for some of the same reasons that Tera just said. I think, again, he's going to fall under the radar a little bit just because people are still 50-50 on that injury. I don't think he really turned a lot of heads when he came back. He did for me, but a lot of people, you have to have like 1,000,000 yards and 100,000 touchdowns before they even give you credit for being a great running back. Me being Major Damas, I can see the future, especially when it comes to these running backs. So put some respect on Cam Akers' name, and I think he's going to be that guy this year.
Well, the good thing for him is there's no Sony Michel there in Los Angeles anymore because, Michelle is basically the GOAT when it comes to RB2s. Now, when we look at everything here, for me, it's Joe Mixon. I know there's other weapons there. There's Tyler Boyd. There's T. Higgins. There's Jamar Chase. There's also a brand new lineman there that are going to make things very easy for him. He's not going to face the same boxes that you're going to see from Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, even Austin Eckler. I'll give Eckler a break because Mike Thomas and Keenan Allen, they deserve a little bit of credit here. But you look at these guys. Derrick Henry, 5 screws in his foot, 10 guys in the box. I'm not worried about that. Joe Mixon is a guy I am drafting no matter what. He is my RB3 behind McCaffrey, behind Taylor, and a guy I feel comfortable getting, especially because I'm getting him mid first, sometimes at the turn in the second. I mean, right now, value for Joe Mixon is absolutely screaming. People are finally putting a little bit of respect on his name. And I think this year is going to be that big time breakout season. I mean, he's already broken out. He's already producing, but I think he could be the RB1 when it's all said and done. I think he has that potential. Will he knock off Jonathan Taylor? Who knows? But if Taylor struggles like he normally does those first 4 weeks of the season,
right,
I think Mixon could definitely keep up with him. I mean, he had 16 touchdowns, I think, last season. Don't check me on this, but I mean, Mixon had a very good season. It was just Taylor had an unbelievable season, right? When it's all said and done. Now, what is all said and done is this episode of the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Hey, we talked at the top of the show, everything that the fantasypoints.com is coming out with here in the next little while. So make sure you are subscribed over there. Vipers 22 will get you 10% off that subscription today. Now, we've talked about quarterbacks. We've talked about tight ends. When we've just finished talking about running backs, on Friday's show, we are going to talk about wide receivers. And guess what? We're not changing our clothes either. These are our lucky wardrobe right now. So what you see today is what you're going to see on tomorrow's show. So make sure you're staying tuned for that. So, hey, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it, right? And that's what we go with the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. We'll see you next week.